the only way I satisfy myself is that if there's this fictional scenario where I'm at an airport and one of my favorite comedians is sitting, and I go and say, hey, I've been doing comedy 15 years in India, and he says, yeah, that's great, what's your journey been like? I have the best answer from India to that question.
George Carlin had said, Kunal, that it is the duty of the stand-up comedian to see where the line is drawn and then cross it deliberately.
Because in Indian context, where we are in our lives today, just quitting your job and doing comedy is crossing that line. To be provocative, where you divide the audience opinion by 50-50, that's a good start.
With politicians, we have had a culture of lampooning. We have had a culture of very strong commentary against politicians. They're never shown as good people through films, history, pop culture. What's happening today is very specifically political, the targeting of comedians like Kunal. And it's a huge contribution to this is journalists who fail to call out the politics of what's happening.
The media, I think we have a good name for them. I think it's called Lashkar-e-Noida.
Yeah. For you, political comedy, because, I only consume Hindi and English. How robust is it in Tamil, Malayalam?
I was born and brought up in Kerala, and I've seen that even TV news channels there, even today, they have these half-an-hour comedy political satire shows where they make fun of every politician possible. In, I think, harsher terms than perhaps what Kunal also used.
And I think a few Kannada channels also at the beginning would have these caricaturish shows where they'd mock everybody, and then, at the end of the day, it would still be those punchlines would have messages. But I think now somehow the primetime anchors have replaced any kind of comedy shows. So
real legendary comedians they didn't peak at 25, 28. They peaked at 60, 55, when they really had a thought through position on community, on caste, on, just the society we live in. Here, everyone wants to peak in the early 20s. And that's why sometimes they end up saying stupid shit.
But what I've noticed is there is two types of comedian. One whose relevance keeps them working, and the other one whose work keeps them relevant.
You spoke about Sudha Murthy, for example.
Yeah.
I saw that you also got fewer claps and people laughed a little, softly as compared to how they would if you were mocking, say, an Ambani or an Adani, right? Back here in Bangalore, it's such, the Murthis are like this holy grail, right?
She claims to be like really simple, but writes like 50 books. You go to a bookstore, there's a section which is like fiction, mythology, crime, drama, and then there's a section called Sudha Murthy. So I've never seen such simplicity. So there is...
What you're doing, you have to be sufficiently angry at what's happening around you, the state of politics, the state of media. But then to do comedy, you have to have this certain distance that allows you to see the irony in something or to build a joke.
You can observe it angrily. You can observe it with disdain, utter contempt, like what nonsense is this? But when you deliver it, you have to be a witness.
And is it hard to be a witness with so many FIRs on you, so much, your business being actively impacted?
The moment you realize that the Constitution of India is not a rule book that you have to circumvent, but it is a freedom manual. So when you look at it like that, then you will find yourself kind of engaging with these topics a little more than usual.
Post social media, 5 times is the increase in mental health disorders. So I do think it impacts young people more than older.
That's because we have this social media kind of thing. It's called joint families. We've lived in it.
My question is there more self-censorship?
While there is a whole mechanics, YouTube is censoring you, Facebook is censoring you, your family is censoring you, your wife is censoring you, the sight of your kids is censoring you. Now you also want to censor yourself.
This is the coming together of the TNM podcasts where they put the South at the center, or I should say we put the South as the center because we are one team. And this is also NL Hafta. Chahe kuch bhi ho jaye, Newslaundry अपना हफ्ता और अंग्रेज अपना लगान नहीं छोड़ते. So this is a crossover because we have a very special recording with a special guest, Kunal Kamra. Hi Kunal, who joins us from where are you?
Undisclosed location in Tamil Nadu.
Undisclosed location in Tamil Nadu.
तमिलनाडु में कैसे आएगा?
कैसे आएगा? And also joining us from their respective studios, Dhanya Rajendran, editor-in-chief and co-founder of News Minute. Hi Dhanya.
Hi Kunal.
Hey, hi Dhanya, how are you?
And Pooja, Prasanna, the voice of reason and who explains things to us. So we stay up to date. Hi
Hello.
Pooja. And of course, our very own Manisha Pande.
Hello.
Hello.
We are recording this in the week where it appears battle has broken out between India and Pakistan. It was originally scheduled for the week of Press Freedom Day. But that week, our special guest Kunal, who we wanted to feature on that week, was really busy, as you may have followed the news. But luckily, we have him today. So we shall all have a conversation on freedom of speech. And I shall kick this off with the question to Kunal. To what extent he agrees? Because many of you may think you know exactly what his position on various things will be. Trust me, you don't, because I have spent much time speaking to him. The unpredictable positions he takes sometimes, which may surprise you. But George Carlin had said, Kunal, that it is the duty of the stand-up comedian to see where the line is drawn and then cross it deliberately.
So basically, as a comedian, you should follow some rules to doing comedy. Like for me, it's honesty, if I'm honest about what I'm saying, and funny. So if it's funny and honest, that's the first, passing. Like that's the first line that you are like, okay, fine, this is, funny, this is honest. It doesn't come from a place of just bias. So comedy does cross that line, but in the Indian context, it is slightly different, because in Indian context where we are in our lives today, just quitting your job and doing comedy is crossing that line, just where you are socially.
The thing today is also that there's no method to this outrage business also. On the face of it, even what Kunal had said, it is not at all, I wouldn't say it was provocative. I mean, this is the long tradition that we've even had in India, right? Uttar Pradesh, you've had these Kavi Sammelans where they've ripped into politicians with, choices of galis also sometimes, songs made on politicians. Lalu Prasad Yadav famously had this thing where,
You could roast him.
So I would say that even the line crossing that you're saying, find the line, and I would say what Kunal did was pretty much within line. I don't think that... But you had this whole hangama over it where he's at the receiving end of FIRs. You had complete violence at that Habitat Center. That poor institution has had to shut down after this, and they'll think twice before platforming anyone. And for what? I mean, there's no...
What strikes me that you do come from a place of conviction. You've thought it through. So just take us through the process of how you write, how you decide that this is what I want to comment on. But before that, about the legal issues of why you take those up. Like, why the fuck do you bother, man? Just do your pieces, charge a bomb and live a good life and wear the lovely sneakers that I see you wear.
Yeah, I've kind of given up on that for sure.
Chappals now, huh?
Now slippers, back to slippers. So basically, what happens is, Abhinandan, the kind of issues that we see, right? Now the government is saying they want to fact check anything regarding them. So if I put a tweet out saying, here's Adani, our coal minister. Now, is that satire in my books? But for the government, it is fact check, right? This is not the coal minister, he's lying. Strike number one. I put, this guy, Lord Murgeshwar, Anant Ambani, who was saving...
Murghis.
Yeah, so he was saving all these chickens. So if I put something that the government is going to have a poultry scheme where they're going to make sure all chickens saved by Anand go to school, college and complete an education. Now, no, government is not doing that. Strike number 2, right? Now if I put something which is like Ambani is supposed to be our... Nita Ambani is the first lady of India.
Abhinandan had actually asked, what is your process? And I didn't think we got to that answer because I really wanted to understand what is the process of your writing.
premise and punchline is where the comedy lies. Basic music of comedy is premises and punchlines. So you have a premise which is relatable, everybody has experienced it or seen it, and then you have a punchline that they don't see coming. So in that sense, while we were on Louis C.K. 9/11, Louis C.K. had this 9/11 joke is like, if you want to figure out how bad a person you are, figure out how long after 9/11 did you actually masturbate or did anything sexual. That's how you'll figure out how bad a person you are. For me,
You spoke about Sudha Murthy, for example.
Yeah.
There are some of these topics that I saw that you also got fewer claps and people laughed a little, softly as compared to how they would if you were mocking, say, an Ambani or an Adani, right? So how do you deal with those topics? First of all, I was very happy because back here in Bangalore, it's such, the Murtis are like this holy grail, right? You can't talk about them, you can't mock them and all of that. Changing, but not fast enough. But how do you choose to push those boundaries? Talking about old people, taking away their freedom. How do you write when you're talking about these things?
So basically, it's a little difficult to navigate when you're talking about taking voting rights of older people and making sure that they talk only 1 hour a day and all. It's not going to be smooth sailing, but there's this structure thing.
When the Arab Spring happened, there were a lot of comedians there was a lot of comedy employed even during the protest. Like in Tunisia, when the protests were against Ben Ali, apparently there was a guy whose picture became very popular because there was so much hunger, and I think one fruit vendor had been shot dead by the
I remember
forces.
that. Yeah.
So he sat with a bread, like it's called kobza or something. It's a Moroccan bread. So he took that bread and he was like aiming it at the army or forces or whatever. So that picture became very iconic as to here is a guy just with a piece of bread pointing at the army.
My first video in 2017 was like about everybody keeps saying whenever they don't have an answer, they keep saying Siachen mein hamare jawan lad rahe. So that was in 2017. Like the thing is, with every passing time, you have to kind of see what is the government doing wrong, where you have a great perspective, and your duty is kind of to cater towards that. Saying, or the privatization part, like मेरे और अंबानी के बीच में मोदी जी क्या कर रहे हैं. So basically, if you kind of have that perspective, which is sharp, even if people do not like your opinion, they'll laugh at the joke, or they'll enjoy the perspective, or they'll enjoy the effort.
But at least it was reported that Book My Show had withdrawn tickets to Kunal's shows. I don't know whether they did, because at least at that time no clarity came up. They sent a very vague statement. Did they get back to you?
Things like Book My Show, what it happens is that the exclusivity that they ask to see, Book My Show has not built a comedy audience. It's us comedians who have built a comedy audience on Book My Show. So basically, when you say that you can't access that audience, but at the same time you are not banned, these are not answers we need from Book My Show. We want Book My Show to say that.
My question is there more self-censorship? I know that you've mentioned how Salman Khan was a no-no once upon a time, and now he's fair game because, he's scared of Modi, so you don't have to be scared of him, sort of a thing. But is there, after your episode, are people now more careful to not cross lines or not be political? Is that something you're picking up in conversations? And how would you view this next time?
And do venues ask for scripts? They don't.
They don't. In Maharashtra, they did have this policy, but we used to send almost empty pages of paper with just anything written. And
I would like all of you to mention one stand-up comic you really like, a particular stand-up performance you really liked, or a comedy show that you really liked that you think today would be cancelled.
Oh.
Which you think was amazing, you still think is amazing, but in 2025, no one will be able to put it out there. So
it's not stand-up comedy, but it's something really slapstick that MTV used to do with Cyrus Sahukar. He used to do the Simi Garibal impression, which I think was really... And he had one episode where I saw it recently. I was like, man, how is he? So it's Salman Khan, and he touches on everything, like the accident, the beating, quote unquote. It's very like, so a lot of these Simi Garibal They really poke fun at Bollywood in a way that Bollywood is not used to. I thought I don't see that happen today. I don't think like anyone can touch Bollywood in the way that Cyrus Sahukar did with this, especially this one episode with Salman Khan where they really like go into everything. All the insinuations about what he does is put out there.
So I used to be an intern at MTV when Cyrus used to do Simi Gere Bal. There was another show he did with it which would not fly today.
So there's a special episode of the crossover between South Central and Hafta. It is behind the paywall. Do become a subscriber or a member to watch the full unedited version. It's available on the News Minute website. It's available on the Newslaundry website. The QR code is flashing on your screen. There's also a link in the show notes below. Click, become a member, become a subscriber, and watch the whole thing.